Welcome to College Outreach's Summer Opportunity Seminar Part 1. We're going to be running this again in May with some additional opportunities, but we wanted to get started now. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I'm going to turn it over to Luna, our Spanish interpreter, to make sure our Spanish-speaking audience can get on the right channel. Luna?
Welcome, everyone. This meeting will be interpreted in English and Spanish simultaneously. Once I finish speaking, we will turn on the interpretation function. At that time, please choose your preferred language on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen by pressing the interpretation icon and selecting either English or Spanish. Please remember to speak at a conversational pace so that I'm able to provide an accurate rendition of your message. Thank you. Bienvenidos a todos. Esta reunión será interpretada en inglés y español simultáneamente. Una vez que termine de hablar, se activará la función de interpretación. En ese momento, elija su idioma preferido en la barra de herramientas en la parte inferior de su pantalla, presionando el icono de interpretación y seleccione inglés o español. Gracias. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Luna. Thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you all and remind you that this will be recorded. Our format is we have quite a few great panelists we want to introduce you to. We're going to have them share their experiences. We have colleges here, college students, we have high school counselors, and we have international and summer program providers. So the format is we're going to hear from all of them. Please feel free to put questions in the chat, but the last 15 minutes, we will welcome your questions. Julia, can we go to our next slide? Just want to remind you, we have a host of virtual events coming up. On February 25th, we're going to be discussing scholarship opportunities. These are private and outside scholarships, not ones you get from colleges. And we're going to be beyond our local scholarships. We'll be covering regional, state, and national scholarships and the myths and realities. So this is open. We'd like folks to start early, certainly in 9th grade. So please don't think it's too early for you to begin that. We'll be having a gap year seminar in March. In April, we'll have our Environmental Global Citizen Seminar. And then in May, we hit things hard with our art, music, theater, and dance portfolios. We cover summer opportunities again, our very popular student athletic recruiting seminar, a career and technical program seminar, and then save the date for our next college fair, which is Sunday, October 4th. Got to fix that, not the 5th, from 10 till 2, and that's in person in Aspen. We are not going to be talking about athletic recruiting in this seminar since we cover that extensively in its own seminar in May. And I'd like to introduce you to our speakers next. We have some great speakers and we're grateful if you can join us. We have Emma Borchers, who is a student at Dartmouth College and a graduate of Basalt High School. We have Michelle Collins, the college and career counselor at Basalt High School, with Emma's counselor. We have Natalia Duran, who's the Associate Director of Admission at Harvey Mudd College. We have Connor Hoffman, who's a student at Stanford University and a graduate of Basalt High School. We have Kathy Klug, who's the former Director of Post-Secondary Counseling at Aspen High School, and she is the founder of this organization, College Outreach. We have Patrick Noyes, who is the Operations Manager at Putney Student Travel. Talk about domestic and international travel opportunities. We have Bill Prescott, who's the Senior Associate Director of Admission at Washington University in St. Louis. We have Grace Robertson Lloyd, who's the Associate Director of Admissions at Grinnell College. Hannah Joy Sachs is the Outreach Manager at Where There Be Dragons, another spectacular travel program for students. And Sarah Smith is the Regional Manager of USA Admissions for University of St. Andrews. I want to thank our panelists. We're very grateful you can be here. And I'm going to begin by asking Connor Hoffman, who is a junior at Stanford University, to talk about his experiences when he was at Basalt High School in the summer. Connor?
Yeah, so I'll just briefly introduce. I'm Connor, as she said, junior. I'm studying electrical engineering at Stanford. I've always kind of been interested in engineering, so a lot of my summer opportunities kind of focused around science and STEM and stuff. I have a list here. So one of them was the France trip. There was a France trip through the Aspen Community Foundation to go to Normandy and learn about World War II and history, which was really, really fun. There was also the McBride internship, which is a trip to Kenya to the Lewa Conservancy to learn about conservation efforts. Another one was the Summit experience through Colorado School of Mines. Basically, it's an opportunity to kind of learn what the School of Mines is like. You're on campus for a week and you kind of take mini classes, and it's a lot of fun to just meet other interested students in engineering. Another thing was the Aspen Science Center. I always enjoyed being part of the Aspen Science Center. When I was growing up, I did activities with them, learned a lot of science through them. But it was, and I decided to become an intern after that finished, and I became a little bit older. And I interned through middle school and through high school, and it was a lot of fun to teach kids about science and participate and all of that stuff. So that's a little bit.
Thank you, Connor. We're going to circle back to a lot of those experiences, including how you found them, how you applied for them, scholarships that you earned for some of those I'm aware of, and what those meant to you and how you shared those on your college applications. But thanks for sharing that. Emma Borchards, our college student who is at Dartmouth University and also went to Basalt High School. It looks like we're showcasing Basalt High School, which we're thrilled to do tonight. Emma, please share with us your summer experiences.
Everyone, I'm Emma. As was mentioned, went to Basalt High School. Connor and I actually took a class with Miss Collins together, so it's fun to see the faces all back together. A little bit about myself. I'm studying biology and neuroscience at Dartmouth. I'm a senior and on the pre-medical track. During my summers, I did a little bit less of the academic of things like Connor and focus more on athletics and working. And so I was a pretty serious mountain bike racer. And so I coached mountain biking 3 of my 4 years of high school summers, and then also was training in mountain bike racing all summer. And then when I wasn't doing that, I also worked in a bike shop. So it was a pretty bike focused summer. When I wasn't doing that, I did a lot of babysitting for just local kids around, which I always really enjoyed. And then I did a little bit of volunteering also for bike programs, pretty common theme there. But it basically gave me a really wonderful, awesome community that I cherish a lot today. I also spent a good amount of time with my family, which was something that I valued a lot and found to be very, very important, especially because some of my summers were during COVID. And so we would do a lot of family trips, camping, and just hanging out together out in the mountains, which was lovely.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks. Enjoyed hearing that. We'll circle back to that as well. I'd love to hear from our 2 counselors, Michelle Collins, who helped these 2 students. Well, they helped themselves. You you were there guiding, I'm sure. And then Kathy Klug, just for a couple minutes to talk about how you encourage or what you do when you're talking to students about their summers. Michelle?
Okay, I can go ahead and go. I'm Michelle Collins. I'm the post-secondary counselor at Basalt High School, and was super honored to have Emma and Connor as students. We did have a lot of fun. And what I would like to talk about is just access. One of the things that's difficult about being a rural school is you just don't necessarily have access. Students don't have access to the amount of things that the student in a bigger city or even a suburban area would have. And so we're lucky enough, though, that even though we're rural in the Roaring Fork Valley, we do have access to a lot of great community and groups. Connor mentioned the 2 that I was going to specifically talk about. Aspen Community Foundation has done a lot to kind of open doors for students, both by offering trips that are both educational and travel oriented, and also helping with students to be able to pay for them. And so I would say being involved or having groups like Aspen Community Center Foundation, also Basalt Education Foundation, to help not only pay for those, but kind of locate some really amazing opportunities like the McBride Scholarship, like the Normandy trip, those kind of things.
That's great, Michelle. Thank you. Kathy, if you could share a little bit about summer opportunities and include a discussion. These programs are all great, but let's talk a little bit about work too. And that I love how Michelle highlighted on the programs, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, we have a double-edged sword because we really are a rural community, but because we have the splashy name of Aspen, everybody expects our kids to be interns at the music festival or interns at the Physics Institute or interns at the Ideas Festival, which brings presidents and all, not this one, but all kinds of people to Aspen. And so they expect that. But the truth is that access for our high school kids in rural areas is more limited, and the college kids swoop up many of those opportunities. You notice Connor said he went over to the Science Center and was an intern there. It's one of the few programs that has high school interns and makes that available. We have a fabulous environmental center. One of the things I ask our kids to make sure they feature on our applications is Putney. This is a shout out to you. Our X-Ed program that is 65 years old is based on the Salem model of experiential ed out of Putney School. Like half a century ago or something. And the truth is that our kids do these courses over 4 years. And so rather than just feature what they can do in the summer and go away and avail themselves of things like Putney Travel or Where There Be Dragons or some of the other programs, which sometimes they can, and they can scholarship or car wash their way to doing these kind of things. I also say to them, feature, I think Emma did quite a bit of this, feature your own experiential ed. And I know that Emma's family treks and does serious trekking. I don't mean a little bit, but serious trekking. She featured a lot of that. And I know that we asked our kids to feature some of the unique things they do. And as for jobs, our jobs are not the splashy jobs in Aspen. We are a service-based economy here. And so our kids often get the unglamorous busboy jobs, bar back, cleanup, these kind of things, because professional waiters are the ones on the front lines. So what I say is feature your entry-level jobs, feature your entry-level experience, feature what we do in our own backyard in your resumes and in your experiences, because that's what our kids have. We have a lot of rural experiences, and sometimes we get lucky and get to do some international things. But one of the things I also ask them to feature is, for instance, Action in Africa. We really did build, we were the primary chapter of Action in Africa at Aspen High School. We really did build a community center there, and they take interns from Aspen High School. So we're not chasing down a trip to Africa that's elegant. We're in support of something we built out of a high school chapter of Action in Africa. And so talking about things you do that are authentic, close to the ground, whether it's a job, a family responsibility, which is another thing our kids can feature. A lot of our kids have family responsibilities, and they aren't like, they have to go to the food bank and pick up food. But because we have many, many families that are two-parent working families, I try to feature, have the kids really write about that. So what I'm trying to do when I advise kids and work with them is show them the authenticity of a rural kid's experience without all the glitz that people come to expect from Aspen, but from the reality of our experiences, situations, and our educational opportunities. The one thing I would say is, please, colleges, don't be prejudiced against the Western Slope kids for going off and taking courses. I know, for instance, close to some of these kids that are on, sometimes we have 1 or 2 kids taking an AP course, and the school can't offer it. So the student has to go and search that out over summer or other times. So those are another thing, that when we go off to Georgetown sometimes and take a course, it's not to be fancy. It's because we want the course and we can get it over the summer, but not always in our backyard.
Okay, we're going to turn it over in a minute to hear from our colleges and our international programs. Before we did that, Julie, if you could show our slide, I just want to remind everybody about the categories we're going to be talking about, and we've thrown them out now. But we use this acronym called FACTS, F-A-C-T-S, and we'll get a slide in a minute on the screen. But the most important thing we want you to do in your summers is have fun. Okay, it's really important. F can also relate to family. We'll talk about that, but please have fun in your summers. It's really important. We want you to be thinking about academics or activities. We have a great resource on our website of a host of academic programs on college campuses. Many of them are free or offer significant scholarships, including opportunities for first-gen students, which are students who are first in their family to attend college. Career is the C in facts, and those would be jobs or internships in the summer. Again, we have great resources on our website for you for that. We'll circle back to those. Travel, please go camping, go on a trip with your family, go visit a college if you're going to a program on a college campus. And lastly is service and volunteer work. Again, we'll show later the resources we have on our website across the Western Slope for you to connect with nonprofits. But now I'm going to turn it over first to our colleges. I guess we'll go in alphabetical order. We'll start with you, Natalia, at Harvey Mudd. If you want to share with us some of your experiences reading applications and talking to students at Harvey Mudd about their summer experiences.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalia. I'm one of the Associate Directors of Admission at Harvey Mudd. And yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to say when it comes to summer programs. When talking to students, reading applications, we see just a variety of different programs. As a small liberal arts college, those programs vary so much. They can be very STEM focused. They can also be very general. They can be in so many different other areas, and that's totally fine. I think the most important portion that we oftentimes look for is something that really kind of brought the student either a new experience or maybe a new area that they really had a passion for. It doesn't exactly have to be in their area that they want to study. I think that's kind of a misconception that we oftentimes get is that, it has to be because we're a STEM focused liberal arts college. It has to be an engineering program or it has to be a computer science program. That is not the truth for many colleges. It's the opportunity to kind of explore, see, just kind of like this program, obviously kind of looking past the Western Slope as well, if there are different opportunities to be able to explore. I was going to say, I was like, Kelly, you mentioned earlier, obviously Mudd's program, and that's something that is a big portion of this. We are trying to explore and give opportunity for students to be able to explore actually STEAM. So not just STEM, but also including the arts in there. So it's actually a new program. I will drop the link later in the chat for folks who want to learn about it. It's actually rolling out for the first time this summer, and it's for rising 10th and 11th graders, so current 9th and 10th graders. I was like, it's really confusing at this point in the school year. But yeah, I mean, looking at applications, just kind of going back to that portion, I think there is a lot to be said when a student is willing to do a summer program, whether it's virtual because they're not able to attend in person or the program is virtual. That's completely fine. It is just kind of showing, a little bit of initiative, not just kind of sitting at home and not really doing much, which is completely fine if you don't have access to it. But I think different opportunities, structured programs, work, whatever it might be, there's a lot to be said about just kind of putting yourself out in a different community than just your family's home. That's definitely a big portion of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Natalia. I'm going to circle back and follow up on a few of those, but I want to turn it over to Bill Prescott at Washington University in St. Louis to talk about how you review applications and what you think about how students spend their summers.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Really excited to be here tonight. My name is Bill Prescott. I'm one of the Senior Associate Directors of Admission at Washington University in St. Louis, or WashU, as you'll more often hear us referred to as, in St. Louis, Missouri. Really excited to be on here tonight and share a little bit more about kind of some of the questions that we've talked about with summer programming. For me, I always tell students, especially when I'm recruiting on the Western Slope, this is something that's personal to me. I grew up in a summer resort town in the Northeast in New England. So I had that, for me, I know that experience of living in a small town and what that changes when it's in season versus out of season and how opportunities might look different. And I think that's something I always keep with me. And I'll talk a little bit about a couple summer programs and some tips and tricks there. But I also just want to highlight to students, don't sell yourself short on all the cool things you guys have in that rural background perspective. I think that's something that when I look at activities and lists, I'm looking at what's available in your high school, in your context, in your community, not and we know it's going to look different than a student in the Western Slope than a student who has opportunities in the city of Denver or Boulder or the Front Range. When I think about summer, I think the core for me is always doing something you enjoy doing and finding meaning, whether that's work, whether that's helping with family, whether that's doing service or engagement, doing research or a summer program. There's a lot of different ways to find meaning in your summer, but I think the ones that really stand out and the ones you'll get the most out of are programs that you find the most joy and meaning doing. In terms of summer programs, there's a lot of different options. Some colleges offer a number of them. WashU has a number of summer programs, which I'll mention a couple briefly. Some do not. Some are hosted by that college or university. Sometimes they're a third party kind of college organized kind of event that's on a college campus. There's quite a wide range in flavor. And I think it's important when you're doing your research to take a look at what those programs offer. Some of them may have I'll speak for a lot of our programs at WashU. A number of them have financial aid or scholarships available. So most of our summer programs have housing on campus. So those are good questions to ask. There's also great virtual options as you're kind of looking at different things, and they can be very broad or general, or taking a class, or very specialized or focused. For example, our Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts has very specialized multi-week programs for students in art and architecture, if that's something of interest to you. I also want to give a mention, I'll drop links to some of these in the chat afterwards as well. There's a number of other ways students can engage with colleges during this process. I want to mention some specific opportunities for rural students. WashU is part of the STARS network, which stands for Small Town and Rural Students College Network. It's a network of over 32 different colleges and universities across the U.S. committed to recruiting rural students. We actually host a 1 week long summer program every year for rising high school juniors called the WashU Rural Scholars Academy. This is an all expenses paid summer program for students from rural backgrounds to come to our campus and get to see what college life is as a student, also help them prepare for their college search and journey, whether that's at WashU or elsewhere. A number of colleges also offer what we call fly-in programs. These sometimes take place over the summer or during the academic year. And these are opportunities where we'll pay for students to travel to our campus and spend 2 or 3 days on campus, getting exposure to life at our college or university. WashU offers ours over the summer. Other colleges offer those during the fall, but those can be great ways to engage your summer as well. So I'll drop some links to those in the chat, but those are a couple things I wanted to mention. But my number one takeaway is have fun, enjoy your summer, wherever that may lead you.
I love that, Bill. Thank you. And Bill, two things I want to let our audience know that Bill highlighted. All these programs that are mentioned, if they're not already on our website, they will be shortly. So please take them from the chat, but we'll have them up there as well for you to follow up on. And this is a great lead-in for Grace at Grinnell, which I believe does not have summer programs for students, which is very common at schools. So maybe Grace can talk about if you do a program at another college, what do you think about that, or one of these international programs, or volunteering or work? If you could just talk about how you view students' time in their summer.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Robertson Lloyd. I know I did the RL because that's long. And I work at Grinnell. I also went to Grinnell. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm really excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. Yes, Grinnell College does not have any of our own summer programs for high schoolers, and I apologize for that. But the important thing to know is that we do consider that when students are applying. So how we review applications is something that we call holistic admissions, where we look at everything a student submits to us, and that includes any summer programming, any summer classes, camps, etc., that they might do that, basically contribute to their application in a way that they feel is meaningful. And so for us, when we are looking at a student, and we are a highly selective school with a 15% acceptance rate, when we're looking at students, we are really considering not just is this student academically prepared, but also is this student someone that takes risks, takes on challenges, and regardless of where they went for that summer program, we are wanting to see, oh, this student did well in that program, took a chance on that program, and chose to include that program in their application. And that helps us get a better sense of, kind of the mentality of that student as someone who is ambitious, is a risk taker, and things like that. The other thing I always like to mention with summer programs is if you can't do them, don't be super stressed. I think they are a great opportunity, but I also understand that they can be financially inaccessible for a lot of students. I will say, as someone coming from a working class family, I never went to any summer program when I was applying to college. So I always just want to be really upfront about that. It is something that can be a nice supplement if you are able to, if you can get the scholarship. But please don't feel like you have to break the bank to make this possible to supplement your file. But if you are able to do it, or if you find a program that is free or has scholarships attached to it, I highly recommend doing it because it is just another little piece. It's also worthwhile if you applied to those programs and you want to share that you applied even if you didn't get to do it. That's something that some students will include. And that is totally valid and something that we consider. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is something actually that Kathy mentioned, which is over the summer when it comes to these jobs, family responsibilities, things that you might be doing that aren't related to necessarily a college or university-based program, but are still great ways to show that you are using your time in a meaningful way over the summer. And I do think that's what we're really looking for is how are you using your summer in a meaningful way? That all counts too. So if over the summer you have a job, it could be at McDonald's, it could be, whatever it might be, babysitting, it could be anything. But all of that matters to us too. And so we just want to see that you're someone who is willing to fill your time in a meaningful way that either is improving you as a person or helping other people, or both, ideally, right? But that's a really important piece of what this whole program tonight is about. There are these wonderful summer programs, but if you can't do those, there are also ways for you to still supplement your application using your summers. And your summer is the time to do that. Get a job, do an internship, go on some camp, go on, and babysit for like 20 families. Who knows, right? But it matters because it matters to you. And if you include it, we will consider it. And that's what matters for us. We want to see that this is something you thought we should know about you. It is meaningful to you. It is meaningful to us because it is something that you might do when you come to our campus, is contribute to your community or find ways in all different realms of the sense of the summer to fill your time. So that's one thing I just wanted to mention. I'm also really
Absolutely.
quick going to shout out one of my favorite programs, which is the CLAE. It is not even through Grinnell, but it's the Clay Carleton Liberal Arts Experience program. It's an amazing program and it's free. So I highly recommend anybody, I'm all about the liberal arts. Of course, I'm pro Grinnell, but I'm pro everybody else too. And so I just want to shout out that program because I don't think it's been mentioned. Not sure if it's on the website yet, but it totally should be. It's a free, wonderful program that basically exposes students to the liberal arts experience while they're in Rochester, Minnesota at Carleton College. So just shouting that out. Also, the Kenyon Young Writers Workshop, which I feel like is very well renowned, but we see plenty of students who utilize those programs and then apply to Grinnell. And we love to see that, especially from a Midwest college, because my institution is based in Iowa. And so it's exciting to see, oh, whoever this is, this student chose to take the risk and go to the Midwest and hopefully loved
Right.
it and had a great summer and now is applying to Grinnell. And that's something that we like to see. So just those two quick shout outs to
Great.
programs. But again, Grinnell does not have one.
We'll make sure we get them on our website. And Grace, you did a great job that we probably should have started with. You could all spend your summers in your basement or family room scrolling on your phone. I assume that our colleges would all agree, and Michelle and Kathy, our counselors, and certainly Emma and Connor didn't do that, that is not a way that colleges are going to be excited about how you spent your summers. So certainly have some fun. And if that's how you have fun, incorporate part of that. But the purpose of this is to encourage you to branch out, whether it is work, whether it's spending time with your family, whether it's a program, academic, athletic, a travel experience to engage in those. And we're going to dive in shortly into what that means to you. But I don't want to leave out Sarah Smith at St. Andrews. And Sarah, before we begin, St. Andrews is in Scotland. We had a question early on in the chat that I want to answer. There is study abroad, which is generally a phrase in the industry when you are at college and you spend a semester or a year through your university or on another school's program studying abroad. Usually involves working on a language. You can also go to a foreign university. And at our college fair, we have quite a few. St. Andrews is one. And then the third thing you can do, and you can start doing this in high school, is go on an international program, a structured program. And Putney and Where There Be Dragons will be talking about that. So I wanted to clarify. I don't think study abroad is a phrase that's generally used for high school students doing one of the Putney or Where There Be Dragons program. I think the industry phrase, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, is study abroad is usually thought of when you're in college. And you can go beyond that if you definitely want to spend a lot of time abroad and look at St. Andrews. But Sarah, please talk about how St. Andrews views how students spend their summer when you're reviewing an application and what you're looking for.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think my colleagues, Natalia, Bill, and Grace, went over really good points that would also apply to St. Andrews. Obviously, things are a little different when you're looking at an international university. And so I think it's important to know that when you apply to a university in the UK, you don't just apply to St. Andrews or wherever it may be. You actually apply to a subject within the university. So Scotland's a little different because it's a little more flexible. You can take up to 3 subjects, but you're still applying to a subject. And so what we are really looking for is ways of seeing that you're passionate about the subject that you think you want to study. So we do have summer experiences at St. Andrews, and I expect other UK universities have them as well. But it's not something that we would say, oh, you've attended a St. Andrews program, we're going to give this person a little bit extra, weight on the scale as far as getting an offer from us. That's not really how it works. What we want to see is that you have done something intentional that has been meaningful to you, that has increased your passion and your curiosity for what you want to study at university. So I think there's a lot of good reasons that we kind of been over this already about, the benefits of a summer experience, whether it's at an institution or not. I think in the case of studying internationally, getting that opportunity to see how you do when you're, a long way from home, pretty far removed, can't, call home. Well, you can call home, but it might be in the middle of the night, and really get a taste for what it's like just to be on a college campus, but one that's a little bit further away, maybe a different cultural experience. And then these international experiences, like the ones at St. Andrews, are all very academic based. So there's lots of different options, whether you're, thinking of psychology and neuroscience or history or whatever it may be. But you're really going to get a chance to meet people from lots of different countries, see what that feels like, see what it feels like to have a different, that changing perspective just on things. Like everyone sees things differently. And it really does, when you're overseas, it definitely changes a lot of the ways that you learn to look at things. So these are all really exceptional experiences. I would say, as I mentioned, be really intentional. Like, don't just, have a checkbox like, oh, I need this for my college application. A lot of times admissions can see through that. We want to see that you did something because you wanted to, because you're interested, you wanted to get out of your comfort zone. But even if you don't have the means or the time to do that, like a lot of times, a summer experience, especially when you're applying to history, a summer experience for us could look like, oh, I read all these books on my own, and I read about, World War II, and that made me want to do this and this. And so you can kind of build your own summer experience. And there's lots of ways of showing us that you have that passion and curiosity. So, that probably covers it. Yeah. Okay.
Great points, Sarah. I appreciate that you highlighted on such a wide range. While we're in the international realm, I'm going to ask Patrick with Putney and then Hannah with Where There Be Dragons to talk briefly about their programs. And then when we're done with that, I'm going to go back to Connor and Emma and our high school counselors and talk really nuts and bolts. How did you find your programs? What was the application process like? And I know both Putney and Where There Be Dragons have an application process, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts about how students can actually do this.
Right.
But Patrick, why don't you talk about the great opportunities you all offer for students?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. My name is Patrick. I'm actually coming to you from a 125-year-old cow barn on a dirt road in rural Vermont, so I know exactly kind of the
Yay.
background that you're coming from. I myself am from a small town in New Hampshire. My first plane ride of my life took me to Spain when I was 17 years old to live with a host family for a year, and it completely changed my life. I ended up going to Georgetown to study languages because of it. And it was one of those opportunities that I never saw coming for myself, and it made all the difference. And so I guess I would just say, as far as thinking about your summer experiences, this is a summer opportunities webinar. Summer is your opportunity. And as Natalia said, pushing your boundaries is the opportunity that you have. It's the chance to go outside of what you're able to do during the school year, something you couldn't otherwise do. And I would say that, especially in this day and age, doing something that is fundamentally human, meaning connecting with other people, connecting with other cultures, doing something that really gets you away from the phone. And even if technology is your thing, I think that when we listened to Connor earlier, a lot of his summer experiences had nothing to do with electrical engineering or a technology point of view. Doing something human in the summer is something I think that you have a real opportunity for. And then also, as Grace said, don't bankrupt yourself to do this. It really is the case that 80% of the value of what you get out of something is what you put into it. It was fascinating to me studying languages at Georgetown, how there were dozens of different ways that you could teach a language. The biggest predictor of your success in learning a language is your internal motivation. So you are the secret sauce for your summer. You don't need to go to fancy programs. There are fancy programs, and there are opportunities in places like Putney Student Travel with full scholarships and other things I'd love to have a chance to describe later. But don't feel like you need that. What you need is the motivation to push your boundaries, to do something that connects you with something outside of your normal realm in the summer. And that's what's going to make the most of your summer opportunities.
Thank you, Patrick. We'll circle back to some of your programs and we'll have them listed on our website, and you can feel free to share a link to your website in the chat. I do want to let everyone know that Putney is very generous in their scholarships. Their deadline is coming up. It's February 15th. For students that want to do something this summer, they do require a letter or two of recommendation. Those are not as hard to get as you would think. And this goes into college advising, but one of the things we offer is helping students with letters of recommendation. We talk about that at the college fair, but you get the letter you ask for. So if you are going to be asking a teacher soon for a letter of recommendation for this program, if you want a scholarship or for general acceptance to summer programs, please know that you can write your own letter. You ask a high school teacher for a letter, and that's a nice long letter, a good page, and you remind the teacher things you did in their class, why you're asking them, why they're important. Kathy and Michelle can follow up on this shortly. And basically, the teacher, you've given them the letter to write. Right?
Hey, Kelly, if I can say it's
ahead.
even easier than that. There's a link you share with them. You don't have to write anything for them. It takes them about 5 minutes to fill it out online. And so
that's
specifically with our scholarships, there's about 25 different countries you can go to. It's an absolutely full scholarship, including all travel and any tax implications it might have for you. So you have zero outlay, and you can choose the program that you want. There are many more scholarships than people think. About 1 in 6 students get fully funded who apply for the scholarships. The deadline is this Sunday, so I'd highly recommend if you're thinking of doing something abroad, this is a great opportunity.
Thank you, and thanks, Patrick. And Hannah, let's talk about Where There Be Dragons. And Where There Be Dragons is known also has a great gap year program. And we're going to be running a gap year seminar in March, and they'll be back to talk about if you want to spend a year before you go off to college, exploring things internationally. But they do offer some exciting summer opportunities too. So Hannah, can you speak about those?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Hannah, she, her pronouns, and I'm a longtime instructor with Where There Be Dragons and also on the outreach team. So Where There Be Dragons, I think echoing what everyone said, you know, just going overseas or traveling doesn't guarantee that you'll have a meaningful experience. But with dragons, and I think with Putney as well, having worked for Putney in the past too, so I can vouch for them as well. But, I think it's really about choosing a program with intention and really doing something you're passionate about, focusing on the connection with different communities, cultural exchange, and really pushing yourself to leave your comfort zone. Personally, one of the first times I left the country was on a similar program, and just leaving that bubble and that community where I grew up really showed me, how resilient I was, how much I had to learn about the world. And I think just being able to be curious in a new environment is really central to our program. So, we focus on more off the beaten path locations, more slow travel, more rugged travel, and really unplugging and focusing and centering the local communities whom we work with and who so generously host us. Um, I don't think, as everyone said, travel isn't for everyone, but hopefully, if you have the opportunity and it feels accessible, you're able to lean into that challenge and really be able to learn about new perspectives, gain some new skills, and also understand just what life looks like in other places in the world. I can also talk about our different like financial aid and payment plans and everything, but I don't know if that comes later. But I do want to also emphasize that there's different ways to make our programs accessible for students of all different backgrounds.
Thank you. No, I just want to point out that comment on that as well. Putney Student Travel and Where There Be Dragons are just spectacular programs. And one of the reasons we include them is they are very generous with their financial aid and offer meaningful scholarships for students. And we want to share that here. One quick question for you, Hannah. Do students need to speak a language to do your programs?
No, they do not. So we have a
Okay.
couple programs that are language intensive in Mandarin and also in Spanish, but we've had a range of students ranging from heritage speakers to people who've done one day on Duolingo. So you're
There you go.
there's no barriers there. And then other programs, they all include a few introductory language lessons as a vehicle of connection with the local community, but there's no expectation that you come in knowing anything and there's no exams or anything when you're leaving.
Great. Thank you. Now, I am also a mother of 5 children, and I really enjoyed hearing Connor and Emma speak. However, I know my own children would be watching this seminar and say, well, that's great. Connor's at Stanford and Emma's at Dartmouth, and they did all this great stuff. So Connor and Michelle, please chime in too. Tell us, Connor, you did this program in Normandy, you mentioned. It's a program that's offered locally here through the Aspen Community Foundation. And I know you applied for a scholarship. How did you find out about the program? What did the application involve? I know you did another McBride Fellowship in Africa. Could you talk about how students can, one, find out where these programs are? I'm going to do a little parentheses. We have these on our website, but there are also many more out there. So please start with our website, how you find programs and about the application process.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, the World War II trip, I believe it's the Normandy Academy, is funded by an individual in the Valley. I believe his name is Paul Bachong, and he's just like World War II buff. He loves sharing this stuff with students. He wants students to be able to see everything firsthand. So he funds, and I don't remember if it's all, but a pretty good percentage of the actual opportunity. So it becomes very reasonable for students. And then if there are students that need further financial aid, I know the Aspen Community Foundation offers further scholarship for the opportunity. I heard about that through friends. I've heard about most of the opportunities I did through word of mouth, just because it's a really cool opportunity, right? Like you hear someone go to France to learn about World War II, and I thought, well, yeah, obviously I want to do that too. So I heard it from some upperclassmen. I heard it from a number of them. And then I kind of had it locked away in the back of my head and said, oh, I'm about, it's like sophomore, junior year. I'll look, see when the application was. I believe it was sometime in the spring. And then it was 2 letters of rec and then some short essays. So I spent, maybe a day or two on the essays, just kind of taking my time, really trying to show my interest, why I wanted to go, and then asked 2 of my teachers that I was pretty close with. But realistically, you can ask any teacher, anybody that knows you well, for their, brief letter of recommendation about me as a student. So that was great. So I think springtime is the time to look for that, and then just kind of, don't ask for a letter of rec at the last minute. I think that's the biggest piece of
Gotcha.
advice.
I know you did
And then
another. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, so then the LEWA, so the McBride internship is funded by the McBride family, who's a super awesome family. They own a ranch. I forget where it is, but up by Watson Divide or something. And so they fund students similarly to go to Kenya and learn about conservancy because they want students to see all the conservation efforts there, and they will also fund a good percentage of it. That was a very similar application process. That one involved an interview. It was a very chill interview. Aaron and Molly, who were running at the time, were just like super awesome people, and it's just like a really casual conversation. And they,
Great.
yeah, so
Good. And then while you're here, Connor and Michelle, can you chime in? So these are wonderful experiences, but I don't think colleges want to see a list of experiences that you did. And I know that's not what you did in your application. They want to know how it changed you or what you took away from it. And maybe it didn't change you, but what you took away from it, and then what you plan to do with that knowledge. Michelle, could you chime a little, and Connor, about how you advise students, Michelle, and help students come to share this information in a really meaningful way?
Yeah, I think that's important. Like being able to do an opportunity like what Connor was able to do is amazing. And you would think, of course, that would change you, but I think conveying that is what's really important. It's a part of like showing who you are. It sounds almost trite, but that's really what you want to do in a college application is show who you are. And so if you can talk about these particular trips and how they've made you a better person or made you realize things you didn't know before, that really helps colleges to make decisions about those things. And then even if you don't have an opportunity to do some amazing trip like going to Africa, then using what you know and what you're passionate about and what you do and just showing how that makes you who you are is what really matters in this whole process.
Great. And Emma, could you talk a little bit about your bike teaching experience? And I know you did it as part of a nonprofit, but you were paid and then you worked at a bike shop. I think you left out because you and I chatted earlier that you did the bilingual program at your high school and were able to help some younger kids, even in Spanish and their language, biking. And then how did you share that and what you learned from that when you applied to Dartmouth?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of getting the job working, I worked for Roaring Fork Cycling. If people are familiar, it was a program that I had participated in 7th and 8th grade. Had gone out for a couple rides with the team. Had really appreciated like the community aspect that it involves, and I raced for them all 4 years of high school, and really just gained a lot from the community and that experience, and wanted to give back. And they offered a position for junior coaches for the more advanced riders on the team. And so I took it as an opportunity because at the very least, I'd be able to spend my summer outside and also get paid for it, which was great. I don't think there was any sort of resume or application involved, just because a person that was hiring was also the coach, so he knew me pretty well. But thought that I would be a good fit to work with the younger kids just from my enthusiasm for riding bikes in 9th grade. And yeah, that was great. I worked my way up from junior coach to eventually the summer before starting college, I was a head coach for 2 development programs, which was fantastic. And in terms of embodying that, I learned a lot from coaching, which I definitely reflected on pretty heavily in my college application essay. And similar to, I forget which speaker mentioned this, but wrote most of my application essays about experiential learning and how that shaped me as a passionate learner. So I think that tied in very, very well. And then as was mentioned, I was a part of the bilingual program at Basalt, and some of the volunteer work I did through Roaring Fork Cycling included coaching or teaching Spanish speakers how to ride bikes. And so I didn't do it many times, but it was definitely a very impactful experience because it was just a really cool way to build community and to interact with people around this thing that I love very dearly, being the bicycle, but using my limited at the time Spanish knowledge to teach people how to ride bikes was really cool. And it kind of opened this idea of what else could I do with this language knowledge? And that's actually, I wrote about my desire to pursue an interdisciplinary education at Dartmouth and how I would want to connect my use of Spanish healthcare field, which I have actually done here. And so I think
Wonderful.
trying to tie in all of those components in an application, but as has been stated many times, really reflecting on how those experiences have
What you're going to
changed
do
and
going
shaped you.
forward. Well, you've done
Right.
some very interesting things, and I love how you tied it all together. And Connor, I love how you, with your engineering brain and working at the Science Center in the summers, also had time for these international opportunities and to bring that all together. Kathy, could you talk in your experience as a high school counselor about students with jobs and internships and volunteer work, how they take that experience and what you've seen students grow from that and how they share that in a meaningful way in their applications?
Well, I think jobs are just a great source of stand-up comedy for high school kids because they see some of the real irony in life and just call it out. And I say to them, capture that and put that in your essay because they're very fresh with their eyes. And some of my kids, work in very humbling positions. And I think it does also allow them to just do what Emma just articulated so beautifully, connect with a community they wouldn't otherwise connect with in just a school and academic kind of atmosphere. So it brings, I think jobs are just magical. And I would say that because of the demographics of our valley, not every high school kid can get a job. You'd think that with all the hiring signs around America, it'd be a snap to get a job, but it's not because people here are taking 2 and 3 jobs to live in this valley, and they get gobbled up, even what we would consider entry-level jobs. So the high school kid who works, to me, is just a source of great essay entertainment for me because I say, just capture that. And what difference did it make that you worked, that you showed up every day, even when it was hard and not glamorous? And, tell me how that's changed you. So I would say jobs are just a great source of conveying who you are and a little bit of your humor. I think you can get away with it a little there rather than in one of those essays talking about getting over obstacles and trying to be a little sarcastic or self-deprecating in writing is a little bit harder. But at a job, you can point out, as I said, some fun, fresh ironies that you see that adults might miss. So jobs are terrific, but they are rare because you will know that our high school kids are overscheduled. And we have 24 varsity teams, much like the other high schools of the Western Slope, trying to field these teams and get everybody warm bodies to take the field. So kids are a little overcommitted, but I think a summer job is just one of those delightful breathers from the regular schedule and give them insights into who they are. And sometimes they walk away from a job going, I'm getting an education. I'm not doing that for the rest of my life, which is another great insight. So
Well,
jobs,
thank you.
good source.
No, I know that all these summer opportunities, one isn't better than the other. We definitely want to emphasize it. Please start putting questions in the chat. We did have one question about the price of programs. They all vary. On our website, we have a list of programs on college campuses, and we list the prices and scholarships available, or if they're free, things that have been mentioned tonight. If they're not already there, we'll add them. Both Patrick and Hannah talked about their programs. I think the costs vary depending on the countries people choose. That's on their website, and they both offer very meaningful scholarships for that. This is the list of programs. We start by category business. It scrolls on down to fine arts. We have engineering. We have jobs. We list to community service and volunteer. That's on a separate page. Engineering, STEM. And we list the prices here. These are all current. All these programs are free or offer very meaningful scholarships. So we wanted to put that on here. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of programs. So we just wanted to give you a taste of what's out there. And we have links to internship jobs on the Western Slope and others. I wanted to, I'm going to ask all of you a question towards the end. So if you want to be thinking about it, our panelists, what advice would you give your high school age self in looking at your summers? So if you could think about that. But back to our panelists, I wanted to talk to Bill if he could, and we keep getting these questions about cost, which is really important. The scholarships available are I'll let Patrick and Hannah talk about their specific ones in a minute, need-based or not. On college campus programs, it varies. Some are merit, some are need, some are free to begin with. So you have to look. MIT has a Women in STEM program that is open to all women in STEM, fairly competitive, but it is free. So there isn't one magical answer to paying for summer programs, but please know that if there's a meaningful scholarship, it's meaningful, and I would imagine there's a financial aid component. So Patrick and Hannah, when we circle back to you in a few minutes, if you could talk about that. But Phil, Michelle Collins wisely mentioned passion. And Kathy's touched up on that too, and our students. Could you talk about a student doing something in the summer that you can figure out they're just not passionate about, and also it's okay to do something that you end up realizing isn't for you, right? And you can share that in a meaningful way. Could you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think the word passion comes up, I feel like a lot in the college admissions process, and I think it's sometimes honestly a little unfair to expect every student 17 and 18 years old to have a passion or know exactly what you want to do in life. I think for me, that's what college is really for, and but I think summer can be a great way to explore that. Like I've read some great essays on students who did I'm just going to use an example of an essay I read a couple days ago. A student who did a summer program in biology and then realized I'm not good with the sight of blood, so maybe I don't want to be a doctor. And that helped kind of them categorize and find another thing that was that they're now super excited about. So I think sometimes that journey in the summer can be opening up, exploring different things and what you find meaning doing, whether that's a summer program on a college campus, whether that's working, getting involved in sports, service, traveling. There's a lot of different ways to find that. And I think for me, what I always come back to with students is, again, that idea of finding something that's meaningful to you and what's meaningful kind of in your own personal journey and things like that. But I always tell students, don't feel like you have to have your whole life figured out at 17, 18 years old. I think that's one of the wonderful things about college. And I think some students know it right away. Other students take them more time. I was definitely more on the latter. But that would be my kind of piece of advice kind of around that question.
Great answer. Great answer. I agree with passion, but I think we overall want students to be excited. Patrick, can I ask you about your Putney programs? Ballpark, how many countries, domestic programs? Just give a little lay of the land on that for a minute or two so we can let folks know what's out there. And are your scholarships all financial need based? Just tell us about that a little.
Yeah, so we have a variety of different categories of programs. They're mostly small group trips over 20 different countries. We have service programs, we have language-based programs, we have career-based programs. So these are ones, for example, I run a sports management program in Barcelona, or cars and the future of transportation in Germany and Sweden. We also have some campus programs in Oxford and in Paris. Those are larger programs, and they tend to be 2 to 4 weeks. Some of them, the language ones, are a little bit longer, 5 weeks or 6 weeks long. There are some travel-based programs in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, one all around Europe. So a variety of different categories, depending on what you're interested in. I will say that our scholarships are need-based. The Putney Open Door Fund, I think for a family of 4, the threshold is about $90,000 a year. Although we do have collaborations with both Harvard and Columbia University for domestic programs that are based on climate change, and those have slightly higher thresholds, and some of them, both of them offer partial scholarships through the universities themselves, and both of those programs are accessible, through our website. We also partner with MIT to do a AI and robotics program. So yeah, there are ones that are domestic. There's actually a wonderful photography program in Yellowstone, and we have a collaboration with the International Center for Photography in New York. And so those are ones that you can do here domestically as well. We have a service program in Hawaii, for example, that's also domestic.
Thank you, Patrick. So
Yeah.
Putney Student Travel's website, which is on our website, as well as Where There Be Dragons website, would be great places, even if you don't do one of their programs, to start getting ideas for what you want to do and how the process works. And Hannah, do you just want to share a little bit where some of your programs are and the duration? And could you talk a minute? We had a question about safety, how you secure student safety in these international locations.
For sure. Yeah. So I guess to answer your first question, we're a bit smaller than Putney, but we do have programs in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and now Spain. Our programs are small group programs, so a maximum of 12 students and 3 instructors, 2 of whom are usually from the communities where we're operating. So I'll return to safety in a minute, but one of the ways that we really take risk management seriously is working with local community members and experts and really embedding our student groups in the communities where our instructors are from and know the local context. So we're not just kind of dropping in, having never been there before. In terms of financial aid, most of our financial aid is need-based, but also a mix of like need and merit-based aid. And then we also have sliding scale pricing. So if you don't necessarily qualify for traditional financial aid, but our programs feel just a little inaccessible, I think that's usually between 5 and 40% like sliding scale discount. And then we also have other incentives, for example, where you can qualify for a free international flight or other ways to support some of the extra costs, like for a visa or this or that, depending on the program.
That's great.
Yeah, we don't
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say for safety as well. And I think this goes for Putney as well. We monitor a lot of very different things. We use international iOS. We have a robust risk management team. We have people who are experts on the ground. And then our programs are dynamic. So, there's always uncertainties and unknowns in the international travel field, but we really are on top of it, keeping students safe and making sure that we're very proactive instead of reactive. So there's always game plans in place, and hopefully you never see them.
No, we're confident in your safety and thank you for taking that so seriously. Natalia and all our college counselors, but if Natalia could answer this and maybe Grace, we've had some questions about who a first generation student is, and our organization usually defines that broadly as someone whose parents didn't go to college, but we have students coming from Central and South America, and one parent might have gone to school down there. The degree is not recognized. They have no experience here in the US. I know college is defined a first generation student in different ways, but generally, what's your understanding, Natalia? And if a student does have a parent who may have a degree from another country, but they're not able to work here using it, don't speak the language, would you still consider them a first gen student?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think definitely, just like you were saying, every school is unfortunately going to define this slightly differently. So at Harvey Mudd, particularly for us, if the parent has a degree from another country, they're typically not considered first gen, but they can participate in first gen programming. They can participate and are oftentimes encouraged to be a part of, like, for example, we have something called Summer Institute for students to really kind of introduce them to this. I want to kind of call back to something that Grace was saying earlier, which is kind of that holistic admission lens of understanding that this student might not have the traditional, you know, a college going culture in their family that we're able to take into context. So while on paper it says that they're not first gen, we might read them in a different context, kind of understanding, hey, you know, this parent, while they did have a, I don't know, medical degree back in God knows what country, you know, it didn't translate and they work as a farmhand or they work as whatever it might be. That's a very different lived experience than a student whose parents you know, degree did transfer over and they're working as, you know, an engineer or they're working as whatever it might be. And for that context, we are able to kind of really emphasize that in our committee in different processes to really kind of share that context and tell students and also tell our campus partners that, hey, this student, while they may not, or while on paper it may not identify them as first generation, we can internally say the student might need a helping hand, or the student might also benefit from different programs and giving them those resources, even if they don't come to Harvey Med or even if they don't come to any neighboring schools. Like that's something that I will kind of point to.
Thanks, Natalia. This was a broader question applying to college admissions as well, but with respect to summer opportunities for first gen, I definitely apply to the programs. I think that you can write a supplemental letter explaining, you know, your position as a first gen, and I would encourage you to seek out those programs and apply as a first gen on that. Sarah, I just want to talk a little bit about what you look at when you see a student from America who's had no experience abroad, but and certainly UK, but is excited about coming to your school, has done their work, and has done other things in the summer. They've worked every summer. Is that still something that you would look fondly upon, or tell me how you view that?
Yeah, honestly, we evaluate applications quite a bit different than our counterparts in the US. You know, you talk a lot about holistic review. The UK just has a little bit different way of evaluating. So we don't spend a lot of time on activities. I would say St. Andrews probably does more than a lot of the other universities who will look more, you know, directly at test scores and grades and rigor and things like that. So for us, it's really important to see experiences that relate to what they're applying for in the personal statement or the supplemental question. So yeah, I mean, we have about 40% of our students come from outside the UK. And so they're, you know, we aren't looking to check a box saying, okay, they've traveled extensively, they're going to be okay. It's more like the students really excited about learning, and you know, you look for ways to see that they're going to be open to new experiences, and that doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be the boxes checked because they've traveled abroad at all.
That's good. That's good, Grace. Sarah, thanks for showing that. Sorry, I'm looking at Grace's picture here. Grace, because I'm going to ask you next. Can you share what advice you would give your high school age self in thinking about your summers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think the big thing with the summers is, I mean, you've heard so many different pieces of advice in terms of get a job or do one of these wonderful programs, like huge fan of Putney, huge fan of Where There Be Dragons, like all these programs that are out there. And we've shared many also in the chat as well. But just to kind of harp on the point that's been said a couple of times is to do something that, even if it doesn't end up being what you do for the rest of your life, do something that feels meaningful right now. And so for the students, you know, whether that is, you know, working and supporting your family, or that's getting an internship and then realizing, oh, this is not for me, that's also a very valuable experience. I feel like those are the sorts of things that you should be using your summer for. And especially for students who are coming from rural areas, I always try to, especially, you know, working for a school that is in a rural area, we are hyper aware of what you are going through. And a lot of it is just whatever you can give meaning to and then share with us that meaning that you pulled from that experience. That's what matters. and just making sure that you can put it into words. And I forget who said exactly, but it's not just about like what you do, it's how you describe it. And I really do think that when I was a student in high school, I worked every single summer, and I worked for my dad, and I had no regrets, and it was wonderful, and it was something that I could do to support my family and be helpful at home and with the business, and like that was important. And so it depends on your situation, and there is no box that you need to fit in of summer program, though that's great if you can, but there's no box. And I really just want to emphasize that you have so many different opportunities that you can access that might seem like not what we're looking for, but they're actually exactly what we're looking for. And I always want to just mention that you don't know what we are looking for in college admission because half the time we don't know what we're even looking for, right? We're looking for authenticity, but that comes in so many different forms. And whether that's, you being an intern or working at a job or having this great summer experience at a program, whatever it is, as long as it means something to you, it means something to us. And I will just say, and we are in the thick of reading season right now. I've read 60 files today, and the amount of students that list these summer programs and say nothing about them. That to me makes those summer programs feel sort of like, yes, they're good, you did them, but what did you learn from them, right? There's
Exactly.
something meaningful about when you can put some explanation to the experience or what you learned from or where you are now as a result of it, whether good or bad. And so yeah, I just
Thank
really
you.
want to
Yeah.
highlight that
No,
piece.
that
So,
is a beautiful way. I want to try and get everyone's thoughts, advice, but that's a great way to wrap up, Grace. That if you take one thing from this, we want you to do meaningful things with your summer, but we want them to be meaningful to you or share why they weren't, and incorporate them into who you are and what you want to do. I'm going to try and go quickly here because we have to wrap up in just 4 minutes. But Emma, in 25 seconds, what advice would you give your high school age self
Oh gosh, that's a great question.
about
I
your
think
summer?
about my summer, I think focus on the things that bring you a lot of joy and that you're excited about because those are the things that are going to be easiest to reflect upon in your admissions or in your application.
I love that. I like joy. We talked about passion. Connor, what would you tell your high school age self, which isn't so long ago?
Yeah, I have no regrets. I had a lot of fun during my summer, and I think you should just do stuff that's cool and interesting.
Love that. Michelle, what would you give your high school age self? What advice?
I like that idea. If you have a passion, I think you need to emphasize that. But I also want to say that if you don't, and you're somebody who needs to work for your family and needs to help take care of your family, that has a lot of value too. And the more that you can show who you are and let the colleges see that, the better off you're going to be no matter what your summer experience is. Just try not to, do nothing. Try to do
Love
something
that.
that's going to be useful.
Patrick, I think you shared before, but tell us what advice would you give your high school age self about your summers?
I mean, this is echoing what other people said, but own it, whatever it is. You just gotta
Oh,
own it, and then it will be yours. So,
I'd love that. Natalia, in a few short seconds, what advice would you give your high school age self?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is that there are people who really want to kind of help you in this process. As a first gen student, my parents vetoed all of my summer programs because they didn't understand what the importance of them. Now, as a first gen admission counselor, I love talking to parents to explain, hey, this is the importance of
Good.
these different programs.
Love it. Hannah.
Yes, so do something that feels right to you in the moment, and it could change summer to summer. You have a lot of summers during your high school career, and you don't have to choose the conventional path as long as in that moment it feels like a good fit for you.
I love that. I love that. Kathy, in a few seconds, what advice would you give your high school age self? Oh, you're on mute, Kath.
Do something that challenges you and puts you outside your comfort zone, and then tell us about it.
Love that. Sarah.
Yeah, I guess just adding to everyone else, be intentional and don't worry so much about what your friends are doing and if they're going to big name schools for a summer program. Just be true to yourself and find something that you want to do, not what someone else thinks
Love
you should
that.
do.
Bill, I saved you for last. You get the tough one.
Man, you guys took all my lines. No, I would come back to, I think for me, it's always about have fun, enjoy your summer, find something meaningful doing. And I think I always come back to don't just do things just because you think it sounds impressive on a college resume. Do things you find the most meaning. Those will be what stands out for us in the admissions process. But that's something I wish I had thought more about in my own high school experience, was stress myself out about this process and not overthinking it, not just having fun and enjoying what I found meaningful, which was ultimately the best experience I had.
Thank
So
you. And remember, the first thing about summer is F for fun. I'm going to wrap up now. I can't thank our panelists enough for sharing their evening time and being here. Please email our website with questions. Please look for future events. We'll be sharing them too in many ways through the schools and through our emails. But again, if you have follow-up questions, we can put you in touch with any of our panelists. Thank you all for sharing your summer advice. We're so grateful to have your guidance and insights. Thank you.